Hey guys, welcome to the Lunge and Live podcast. Today we're joined by a very special guest, Virgis Silinskas. Just been practicing my pronunciation. I probably screwed it up. But Virgis is very experienced in the fitness industry. I met him on an anatomy and motion biomechanics course a little while ago, and we just got on really well, having very similar perspectives on how health and fitness should be approached. So in the episode, we talk about the new facility he's opened up a year ago now, Precision Health Gym in Whitechapel. And the thing that was most impressive to me when I visited was the holistic approach, where they have everything under control, from training, nutrition, movement screening, but also metabolic health and getting your blood panels assessed before starting working with them. So they get a really clear picture on what your priorities actually should be when it comes to starting a health and fitness journey. So you can expect to learn lots of information about how to prioritize each of those areas, the common pitfalls that people fall into, which will hopefully give you some new perspectives on your training. Before we get into it, don't forget to click the link in the description box below to find out more about Rob's strength formula, your answer to the strength and muscle building equation. And as a Lunge and Lift listener, you'll get a special 14-day free trial to see what it's all about. As always, a big thank you to our show sponsors, thetrainingstimulus.com. Please check out the website if you'd like to learn more about movement mechanics. Wit-fitness.com. Use a discount code LL15 to get 15% off your purchase. And Hydro, use our discount code LL20 to get 20% off your blood flow restriction apparel. Right, let's get into it. Virgis, welcome to the show. How are you today?
Really well, thank you very much. Thank you for inviting. Yes, excited to be here.
Good. We're very pleased to have you. For the listeners' benefit, please could you give us a quick intro to who you are and what you're doing at the moment?
Well, first and foremost, I'm a health and fitness coach. So been in the fitness industry full-time, probably 12, 13 years now. I have deep interest in movement and biomechanics and overall quality of how human body is moving and why certain things happening. So that's kind of my own research and interested as well. But of course, it's like everything was to do with performance and problem solving when it comes to body. So yeah.
Brilliant. And you've just, how long ago now was it that you opened Precision Health Gym?
Oh, it's going to be close to a year now, actually.
Close to a year now.
Yeah,
So how did
one
you
more
get
month.
how did you get from starting in the fitness industry to opening up your own facility?
Yeah, so it's kind of my own journey as well to find fitness. Like, well, I find it early age as well. I've been quite active as a child, so then martial arts, play basketball. Been like, I always been like, I didn't want to stay at home. So like, if I go on a bike and or try to partake any kind of activity to keep myself active. So yeah, that helped me to stay healthy. Probably now when I think about it as well, and then importance of actually moving better. But at the same time, it's like with the fitness and with the training as well, is when you just using one thing as like one tool as a get there, and you realize like it can be also causing some issues as well. So I start pick up injuries, just from the sports alone as well. So getting like certain fractures in the bones, like falling down, that's completely normal. Then discover gym, so that was kind of a bit more structured, I would say. And I realized how much confidence that give me as well in my ability and in terms of how I feel, how I feel around other people as well. So like, especially when being a kid as well, at my age at school, so it's always like, self kind of doubts and other things. And it's like, I realized how fitness actually elevated that. So it's actually improved things. So it was like for myself to just discover how important that is. But then even for the gym journey, training, and I think it was like 15, 16 years old when I started, going to a gym and started training a little bit more intensely as well, pursuing a bit more strength, just testosterone-driven kind of approach as well. So getting stronger myself. Picked up injuries, so start picking up like certain niggles and pains when I was like 20s, probably 20, 22. And then I just kind of realized like, where am I going to go with that? Yes, before it was pretty exciting and getting confidence and body shape and image and everything else. But at the same time, it's like what was actually the cure become a little bit more of a kind of the curse as well, because then you have to like think like how we're going to take that journey further. It's like I do like training and do like push myself, but at the same time, you get like a lower back pain, you hit like a hip pain or whatever was going on. So I thought, I still wanted to be in fitness, and it was always something was like driving me to understand body better. So yeah, personal training is kind of was first thing I was thinking, like how I can actually get into fitness, or how I can actually work with people. And yeah, starting personal training journey, then the course, from the course, like everyone probably realizing how much you don't know. It's like how much you're not ready to actually work with people. So it's a bit ego check for me. Was there. But I think it's important at the same time we actually realize that how much is there to learn about the body, and for me, just open another door to start educating myself. So I really wanted to understand better. So I stopped, my training the way I was pursuing training. I realized, I need to learn a lot about body, movement patterns, how to do certain exercises well, and why certain things happen in the body. So I went into a bit more therapy approach as well. So I started doing spot massage courses. So I thought like, okay, it's not just the movement patterns, also understanding the body a little bit more from the physical perspective, from anatomy perspective. I don't think the personal training course was answering that. So seeking for more answers there. So that was kind of first introduction for me to understand anatomy better. So that's definitely helped to reflect on my body a bit more. So start to be a little bit more in tune, understand where I'm making mistakes, where I can actually improve. So really spent a lot of time, working on mobility, working on my stability, balance as well. So understanding those concepts and then applying the strength training on that on top of it, which is realized like it was really helpful. Start getting way less injuries and the pains disappear as well. So it's like this way more matured approach of training as well. So instead of being rushed and to suffer driven, I was thinking more longevity wise. And it's like I get more excited about people actually in the fitness industry who've been like for a long time and still doing amazing feat as well. So it's like that's kind of my goal, big why I'm actually want to be in fitness. So when I'm 70 years old, I'm still able to do things without pain and without any problems as well. So that's kind of till now, I think, is still the driving factor to my training. So every time I ask myself, the training program I do or whatever approach I take to health, how that's going to be related to when I'm going to be older as well. So it's almost like a little bit more insurance policy for me as well. I still want to perform really well when I get to a certain age. So longevity approach is the one.
I love
Brilliant.
that. It was really interesting to hear you say you kind of stopped how you was training completely and basically reframe everything going forward. So, like before you stopped what was your type of training before? As you said, you mentioned about like strength training. Was you like fully in the strength world, or was you just doing a bit of a mixture of everything? Like, what was your training back then?
Yeah, it's probably a mix of everything. I would say it's like it's like all saying is, if you have one tool, like I have a hammer, everything feels like a nail. So for me, it's a bit of that. It's like I saw the benefit at the beginning because I was really young. So I was 16, 15. So you're talking about like maybe another 3-4 years when I realized the benefit of structured training as well. So just getting into routine and getting stronger as well, and of course have different hormonal response as well in the body. So you actually gaining, and it's like I was at the school as well. I don't need to really attend the fitness classes that much because the school teachers are like, yeah, you're fine. It's like we can surpass those levels as well. So it's kind of, it was a lot of confidence at that point, but then you get certain points when it's like you're pushing those limits and you realize like every session has to be strong, it has to be intensive. And and then like without any kind of specific issues, like it's more like a compensatory pattern when I'm thinking right now, creating those issues, like when you start, doubting yourself on certain things, like you're almost like, approaching the gym from this perspective, like, I don't know if you want to do that session, right? The way you're putting yourself through. So yeah, that actually led to, stopping altogether. It's like, just realize what's going on. So I spent a lot of time doing mobility. I think I spent like a year of just like doing is like cutting all the resistance training and just working on mobility, understanding the body, like how to move better. And I think that time was really kind of self-learning, which actually helped me to just realize like certain things, simple things, like without still having the answers for that. It's like, in certain positions you can be really stiff and it's painful, and then at the same time, you put yourself in a little bit more comfortable scenario, safer scenario, and suddenly the pain disappears and you have more range of motion as well. So it's like I didn't have answer at that point, why that happens. Like just like, well, cool, that's interesting, And then when you go to different courses, and so like you have to stretch those muscles, you have to do those things, and for me, it was still not answering that neurological aspect to it. It's like, well, not really. Certain things are actually happening quite quickly in the body. It's like even when it comes to pain perception, if you create a lot of safety in the body, suddenly things different, and that safety can be not necessarily the specific adaptation of movement pattern, but just explanation of your body's ability to do certain things as well. So it's just like reassurance as well. Like, when you with the coach, for example, you kind of, you put that trust to that person as well. So suddenly you trust the coach more than yourself sometimes, and you can do more things without, experiencing issues as well. You surprise yourself. So it's kind of trusting your body as well. So it's like reconnecting with yourself a little bit more, like understanding, what you're actually doing is beneficial for you, and what you're doing is actually detrimental in the long run.
Yeah, totally. But just for the listeners' benefit, what would you say are some key distinctions between how you trained before and how you train now after that sort of year of mobility and learning? Like, what would be some examples of practices that have really changed? Because I think a lot of people are probably thinking, wow, am I doing it wrong now? Like, what sort of things is he talking about that I could learn from?
Yeah, it's like, it definitely evolved massively now as well. And I think Precision Health, like the company I'm building right now, is kind of, it's all about that. Is we all think about certain things like, I want to get stronger, I want to get bigger, have a physique goal or something like. So for me, it's actually, you're talking about performance, some sort of performance goal, and we completely overlook the preparation and the requirements for those things. And when you think about those goals, they all require some sort of stress and then adaptation, hopefully positive adaptation, right? And when we embark on those, like, when you look like, okay, I want to get stronger, you read like starting strength book, Mark Ripto, and that was like one of the books I get introduced to as well. Like, I think it's great, but yeah, he talks a lot things about preparation as well, but talks about like importance of strength as well. So he talks importance of the that performance phase, but not really in depth in terms of the preparatory phases as well. So let's say we have a good perception of our body, we have a good balance with stability, a good coordination as well, and also long-term approach to fitness as well. Yeah. So it's like, can you actually do that thing for long term? Like for me, that was an example of that. When I was good, I realized that really early on, I can't do that long term. Mm-hmm. I can't push myself long term. So I have to understand, like, the program is not conducive for longevity, and it's like you have to think about differently. So okay, if I'm able to push myself on that session, how much of that stress on the body I actually can sustain on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, monthly basis. So I think as a practical application, is not every training session has to be intensive, and most of the training should be geared towards quality. That comes down not just in the sake of just training, but I think in everything. Then it comes down to, let's say, nutrition as well. People having this all or nothing approach, like I have to lose weight, or I have to, gain muscle. And then it's like, what would be the best strategy to get there? And of course, you can find some things like, you have to go in a calorie deficit, or you have to increase your calories dramatically as well. Carbohydrates can help, but then those solutions are short term, and people kind of stick to it for long term, not realizing how detrimental that can be. Any stress for long term, you're probably going to be negative stress, but exposure to short duration of stress, and then ability to recover from it, it's probably much more conducive what your results will look like. So yes, it's a lot comes down to that preparatory phases as well, which is really overlooked. Understanding what's my starting point. You really, be really honest to yourself. And I've been like that. It's like, the pain kind of, it was a teacher for me, right? It's like, I have to be honest, like it doesn't work, right? So you just have to rethink my strategy, rethink my knowledge as well, my understanding about training overall. And I just realized, like, well, it's not just training, because it's other things as well, how you recover from training, your ability to coordinate your body as well, and to learn those skills as well, which sometimes can be really boring, to do those things. But as long as you have that long-term goal, be in fitness, be in training, be fit and healthy and look after yourself, it's just, it makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's great, and probably something that is useful for me to hear as well, because I think when you're surrounded by people who are very motivated and like pushing themselves, the temptation is to think that that's the only way to train, and that you should always be looking to push your threshold. You should be always looking to make some progress. But I love the way you phrase it there, in that you've got to be aware of your starting point, because if you're already heavily taxed, you're very stressed from other things, your body isn't in a situation where it can adapt to that stimulus. And I think, like you say, it's very often overlooked to have that reality check of like, actually, I'm not in a situation here where I can push myself really hard and make progress. And I'm probably not going to recover. It's going to push me backwards rather than forwards if I keep the pedal down for too long.
Yeah, and it's the same. Just to add to that, is our own perception sometimes can be misleading, right? It's like someone who's in stress, it's like in a stress response for a long duration of time. This is kind of normal being, right? You don't realize, like, when sometimes you're talking with the clients as well, like, how you feel when you wake up in the morning. I feel a bit groggy. I need coffee. I need like some, something to pick me up to keep going.
Yeah.
And it's like, from perspective, like when someone was doing that for 10 years, for example, or even longer, right? This is the reality. It's like when you tell them, like, actually, it shouldn't be like that. You should wake up, feeling ready to go. It's like, it should be no problem for you to, do whatever you want to do. And they will look at you like, think like we're talking about.
Yeah. Everybody listening to this now is just like, what? That's not normal?
I don't have no one
People can do
like
stuff
that,
without
right?
coffee?
Yeah, it's like something like an attainable dream, which is in reality is just the way your body should operate. And you should ask those questions, like, why I'm not, right? Like, why I'm waking up in the nighttime as well. Like, if that happens to me, like, I'm not saying like sometimes I not have my coffee in the morning as well, or like if I wake up in the nighttime, but I will ask those questions, like, what's going on? It's like, why those things happening? And is that driven by additional stress from training? Is that driven from mental stress or nutritional issues as well? It's like, it's always kind of revolves for me around 3 questions you can ask. Is this enough training stimulus or too much training stimulus? Is something to do with nutrition or something to do in recovery? And that kind of revolves all the time in symptoms. So it helps to kind of have that guiding light. What would be the standard, for you to feel good? It's not necessarily being optimal, but like, what would be some sort of norm or baseline you operate from? And when you deviate from that, like, how you can actually come back at least to that standard before you go to optimal performance or whatever you would like to achieve.
Yeah, I found that personally myself recently, like coming back into like just competing in a competition. So coming back out, I was programmed for myself, and what I was used to doing, like the volume I was used to doing in like my old style of training, and I was getting through the sessions, and it was going just over an hour, and I was just like, this just feels like too much for me. And I realized I had to essentially take out a couple of sets. I had to literally take out a whole block of exercise. I was like, this is just too much for me right now, because one, I'm just feeling under recovered, and because I am in a bit of a deficit anyway. But like, I realized I had to review, and I think just like you said there is like, and Ash reiterated the point of like, seeing where you're at right now, because it's so easy to keep comparing yourself backwards and saying like, I'm picking myself back up where I was, and it's like, because I'm still training, I've been moving the whole time, like nothing's changed. It's like, it has changed. You're now not only doing a different style of training, but you've got to completely change, because you have to essentially find your new line in the sand. Where are you now? Because if you know that, then we can then start building. And I think it can be really easy to think, but it's not enough. I need to be doing more. It's like, we had a guest on the other week, and then it spoke about how, like, you're always training for that short-term gratification, for like chasing for the pump. So making sure all your sets are kind of like closer together, so that you get that feeling of, I'm doing work, when actually if you have a bit of a longer rest in between sets, you could probably do higher quality work and probably get more or the same out of it, and you get to have more rest. But then obviously the amount of stuff you can get done in a session will be less. So then it's that thing of trusting the journey, or trusting the programming, that the programming is, and everything you're doing is sufficient enough to keep the body wanting to keep coming back for more day in and day out. And I think that's what I love about what you've mentioned there about like the longevity side of stuff, is we can easily focus on these short-term goals, which are great, because I think that's what keeps that fire going, keeps us moving forward. But I think taking that step back and actually aligning it, like, can I see myself doing this when I'm, say, 40, 50, 60? And it's like, for instance, with myself, I can see the way I train at the moment, I could still be doing that in years to come. I just know it will be massively scaled down, probably in loading, because my body won't be able to take as much. But the intensity will probably still be there to some degree, because that same loading that it feels like an 8 out of 10 now will be lighter in years to come. And that's fine, I think. And then as long as I'm trying to focus on keeping my movement quality high and so forth, then later down the line, hopefully I don't have too many beating up body issues.
Yeah. And it's like, sometimes we, like you said, it's definitely important, to strive for that short-term, exposure to stress. But also it's like it's really personal when it comes to that as well. Like, where we're coming from, it's like we have certain standards as well, what that means. But then even understanding as well, like when it comes to training, for example, pushing the set to the limit, for the maximum effort. Well, it makes sense, right? This makes sense. Like getting high stress. It's like we can say we can do a few things. We can do frequency, or we can do intensity, right? So like I can do something really often but not intense. And that's going to be also enough stimulus to adapt. At the same time, I can do something really, really intense. Okay, some sort of really intense session. Do it once. That's like high stimulus. As long as I can recover, adapt to that, and that's also going to strive for progress. But at the same time, when we think about intensity, what people kind of misunderstand, like pushing yourself to the limit, the body to the limit, the nervous system to the limit, instead of pushing yourself to the mechanical limit, like mechanical stress. So let's say if I do certain movement pattern well, and then this is kind of rules I set to myself. Okay, this is I'm gonna do push up, and this is the form I'm starting from, and I'm gonna fail on this pattern.
Yeah.
So I'm not failing on the body. It's like my nervous system is still engaged and connected, but I can't do any other rep on this specific pattern. I can deviate from it. I can still do it, but we're talking now about the full body failure. So we fail on the pattern already. Your nervous system probably not able to actually sustain that pattern. It has to compensate hard, because you still, our mind is like, we can push yourself more than your body can actually do, right? It's possible. But then what kind of stimulus is that? Like, is this actually conducive with your progress, or is that going to be actually detrimental in actually building something which more likely will cause injuries, problems down the line, when you're actually going to ask yourself those questions? But probably when I was asking myself when I was 16, 20, not realizing like what's going on, because for me, I didn't understand that concept that time. For me, it was like, you have to push yourself to that limit, and it was working at that point, but then you realize for the long term is you pick up things, and like you pick up things like when your body's like not really connected.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know the difference between technical failure and absolute failure, where they think I can do more, so I should do more, and I'm not getting a stimulus unless I do more. But technical failure is still a type of failure, and like you said, like if you go beyond that, you can start ingraining compensatory movement patterns where the wrong muscles learn to do the job, and that can creep back into your earlier reps and sets the next time you come in, because your brain is like, oh, actually I can do this movement like that, and it actually gets more and more embedded. So it is a great, it's very important for the absolute vast majority of people to just stick to technical failure. There's not a huge amount of benefit, like, unless you're a competitive athlete in competition, then you know, use whatever you can to get the lift up. But for everybody else, I think technical failure is where you should draw the line. But one thing I wanted to ask you, Virgis, was how did you come up with the idea for Precision Health Gym? Like, what was the was there a moment where you thought, I want to do things differently, and this is how I would construct a more holistic service? Because that's one of the things that I like so much about what you've done, is that you've got all the movement knowledge, you've got loads of personal training experience, but you've drawn in experts from other fields so that you can address this big picture of the whole human rather than just them as an athlete, as a movement athlete, let's say.
Yeah, well, it definitely didn't happen overnight, and this is kind of evolution of what I realized early on when I just starting my coaching career as well, like understanding, okay, I need to learn a lot. I need to study a lot as well to serve people better. So for me, what I see in the fitness industry, and probably yourself actually as well, being in the fitness industry, it's a lot of scarcity. People kind of have this kind of scarcity mindset. Not everyone, of course. And it's a great coaches there, and I really love fitness industry, and that's the reason I'm still here. And you have to immerse, I think, full time. So you can't be just one foot in it. You have to immerse yourself. Have to even you feel like the success is not necessarily initial premise there, but if you're there for long term and you actually have a problem solving mindset, I think it's always going to come out better and well for you as well. So for me, it's always been that. It's why those things happening. This is the full answer I have for this client as well. How I can actually do things better. So for me, it wasn't the money driven kind of strategy. It was always like, can I actually serve better? Like what's going on? I was really truly interested in a person's outlook, because at the end of the day, it's like, just thinking from perspective of someone actually asking for help, just from myself, like if I have to ask for help, someone, is probably really important. It's probably something, was there for a long duration of time. So I really respect when clients come in and ask for help. So I think it's part of that respect, and also, serving better for them. So like, let's say when you're teaching someone movement, I would like to, make sure they take away something, and if they go to another trainer, it doesn't mean I fail in any way, but it just means if they go there and they can actually pick up from where they left, instead of we have to start again. And I see that a lot as well, and when we have to kind of reset things up again. So and even with the coaches as well, the same things. I was really open to problem solve when I was in the box gyms and stuff like that. So collaborating more than having this scarcity mindset, I have to not sharing my ideas. And if even I know certain things, like, let's say when I was specializing in movement, and I probably knew a little bit more compared to someone else, and I'll be more than willing to share ideas as well, like what they're doing and other people were doing as well. So it's kind of evolution and going to more perspective. Okay, it's like I'm thinking and kind of grasp the concept of better quality of movement, but then I realized, when it comes to nutrition, it was not necessarily my forte, something I was really interested. Like I don't think I had massive struggles myself, and that's, again, it's I think it comes from that selfish perspective all the time, what you're struggling the most and what you like to learn. So that wasn't really a big struggle. I don't think I had any kind of attachments to that as well. So it's like I was treating nutrition as a performance against, like, if it feels better, I'm fine with that. And I prefer healthier options than something is like processed. But I realized this is a big concept for a lot of people. And we have all those things as well going on, and sometimes, like, when people are come with the problems, to answer those problems well, we need much more investigation. So early on, I realized, like, just the general approach is not necessarily conducive to have that kind of good starting point as well. Like someone asking about, supplementation, or someone asking, having certain symptoms going on in the body, straight away we're assuming, okay, their nutrition is pretty poor, they're highly stressed as well. And we're just kind of slapping that label, and we go with that and see what happens. And then, like, sometimes, in most cases, of course, when you like eating healthier, doing better habits, it works. But some people still fall for the cracks, and we know that really well in the fitness industry. Like, it's uncommon, it's true to say, but a lot of people, they try their best, and there's still a lot of things unanswered for them. So yes, it's kind of come up to a pursuit of, like, what else we can actually do, and at the same time not being that kind of master of all trades, and looking for advice somewhere else. So when it comes to nutrition, it was kind of quite common to, like, for me, it's like more common sense was like, okay, well, we need to analyze the bloods and look at the nutritional deficiencies more closely as well, understand if actually those supplementations that people taking, which they might be benefiting for most, but are really important for them, and nutritional strategies also. So that's kind of one. And then for the other courses, I met my business partner, now friend, Christian Thompson as well. So he was more interested in that kind of field as well, biochemistry and neurology as well. So that was, like, again, spur me up to understand better, at least the concepts, not necessarily in depth, because I always felt like, if someone's really interested in something, I think that's going to be great help to have that kind of person on the team, or at least as advisor as well when it comes to problem solving. At the end of the day, what's important is actually to help person to get better.
Yep.
So whatever that would be. And he was doing metabolic analysis at that time as well, right? So that's kind of first assessment I was introducing in my coaching, and it was really beneficial for me to understand, the person's ability to express, being exposed to stress, because that's kind of, again, I was still in movement, really deeply in coaching and training, and realized, like, well, not everyone can actually tolerate stress same. Okay, so how I can actually assess that? Of course, we can assess manually for the certain exercises, looking at the performance, cardiovascular performance, but like a little bit more in depth, having better answers straight away, like at the same time. So metabolic analysis is a great tool to understand their stress position. So that was kind of one, and I just realized how helpful to have those things on board to problem solve better. But at the same time, it's cumbersome. You have things like, you have to travel to one practitioner to do that assessment, then you have to go to another place as well to do another assessment as well. And it's like, of course, for the client journey, you want seamless transition. You want to have expert advice, having those people on board, on your team, on your side, to go forward with your journey as well. So, like, at the end of the day, you want to streamline the process for the client journey. So whatever that, you take all the responsibility as a coach and everything else to manage that. But I think from the client's perspective, it should be quite simple. If you go to a doctor's appointment, you expect to have some sort of test done as well, to have your starting point. Specifically if you go private, at least it's going to be much more in-depth investigation of your elements. And that's what you expect. You don't expect just having conversation, but you expect some tangible data analysis of what the problem really is, at least closer to that. In fitness, we probably don't have that. I think we're still far away from creating some sort of standard, but we just, like, I can send the client to any kind of fitness facility, and then I know they're going to be assessed and get advice. Not necessarily like, it has to be the coaching process, can be different, of course, but at least the starting point, assessment process is going to be close to standardized in the industry. So I think, precision health is kind of that evolution of creating the standardized approach to assessments and coaching when it comes to clients' goal in health and fitness.
Amazing.
What I love about that is the fact that you're essentially getting rid of the need to eliminate a lot of stuff and have to rebuild slowly back in and question, does this work, or maybe that was a little bit too much, like just using nutrition, like taking yourself right back to an elimination diet to essentially then have to reintroduce things really slowly to see if it works. You're cutting that all out, and because you're obviously offering that full solution of, for that full aspect where it is from the blood work side of stuff, the nutrition support, the coaching, and through the assessment stuff, it gives someone, I say, that full package to be able to get them running straight away through whatever they need to do to get towards their goal for where they currently are. And I think that's the beauty of, I'm grateful for where I've been in the industry, for have many different referrals, being able to refer out to, say, nutritionists, to certain companies that I know that I use for blood work, to do this, to do that I'm very grateful to have those connections, but not many people, not a load of people necessarily do. But then to have it all under one roof, like yourself, that you can provide that service is a cool service. As you say, it's that one-stop shop to beyond just being able to go out and transform your body, say, but this is actually, no, where are you now? How can we transform you, and how can we do this so it's going to last in the long term?
Yeah, and I think and it's important to have one like team approach to those things as well. Like you mentioned, those tools are available, right? And the problem what I see as well is a convoluted industry there as well. Like, if you go to do your bloods as well, and again, it's not necessarily related to the overall goal what the person wants to achieve as well. So you still have to really decide for yourself, like, how you're going to approach. You realize like you have some deficiencies there, and then you go somewhere else, you realize you have some movement deficiencies there as well. How you're going to relay that to a coach, for example, to go through the process now and to optimize your health and improve longevity or whatever the goal would be. So actually having everything on one side is really important, because at the end of the day, we're looking at all systems same the goal orientated way as well. So if let's say someone has certain symptoms and you want us to improve body composition, okay, first thing, how we bring their nutrition, movement, body composition back to balance before we optimize, and looking at different what like would be the minimum requirement for us to actually assess, like what we need to know, and at least for the start. And we're not saying like we know everything, we have all the answers, but I think in the spectrum, getting closer to the better answer, is important. And is you can do as like many tests, of course, but what would be the standard? Like you like to look at the movement, we like to look at the movement more objectively, and having some sort of standard there as well, that would be important, right? And when it comes to nutrition as well, you like to look at the deficiencies, hormonal balance, and so it's like simple basic markers as well, just to understand what we add before we go in depth, let's say, if we need to, right? And we have a bit to do that, but at least we drop like wide net and looking at the possibilities where we can actually make the most improvements straight away, like the big rocks, right?
Beautiful. I think you said it really well there. Just the thing I was so impressed with is that somebody can come to you with a goal, but I think something that's really common in the health and fitness industry is that people aren't aware of what their limiter actually is. So say they want to lose some weight, they think, oh, it's a training issue. I need somebody to teach me how to train, and I probably need to train harder. And if they speak to a personal trainer, they're like, yeah, I can do that for you. But then they might speak to a nutritionist and it's like, oh no, it's actually your training's under control. You actually need to sort out your diet. And then they'll speak to somebody who's an expert in metabolic health, and like, actually, you're way overstressed, your hormones are out of whack. So the training and the nutrition aren't going to solve your problem. And then somebody might say, look at your lifestyle, and the individual because they're speaking to people who operate in silos separately,
Yeah.
like you said earlier, they've all got hammers and they see everything as a nail, and it's no criticism. It's just
Yeah, of course.
having the ability to zoom out and see the bigger picture of all of these are important, but for you right now, which is the first one we need to get under control? Because there's a lot of people who train really well, who eat really well, and probably do too much other stuff. So their whole system is generally overloaded. So if you look at it on paper, everything's perfect. They go to the gym 5 times a week, they train hard often, they eat a really clean diet, they go to bed on time, but like I said, they might not get the best sleep quality because they've got a lot of other stresses in their life. And I think there's going to be a lot of people listening who are like, that sounds like me. I think I'm ticking all the boxes, but I'm missing something and I don't even know what I'm missing. And I think having a team of professionals who specialize in each area, but still talk to each other, and you can get that triage process of like, yeah, for now, we're going to remove your concern in this area and redivert your efforts over here. And then we'll bring whatever it is, the training back in, if we've had to dial that back in. I think that's really, really awesome. Could you give us a little bit of insight as to what that triage process looks like at Precision? Say somebody comes in and they're struggling with a few different things. How do you get to grips with their personal situation, and what does that comprehensive assessment look like?
So yeah, it's we kind of approach this is three stage approach really. So the first stage is a rebalancing stage for everyone who come into Precision Health, whatever that goal would be as well. So for us, of course, going through the assessment process, which entails to have you do 4 assessments we recommend. So that's going to be blood analysis, which look at nutrient deficiencies, mineral deficiencies, sex hormone profile, thyroid function as well. So those ones important for us to actually understand their position. So to entail nutritional strategies and also stress tolerance issues and stuff like that. Then we do metabolic analysis, which has the resting metabolic analysis component, and then stress component when we look at the stress response of the body. And the last 2 is metabolic analysis, and of course the movement and posture analysis. So those tests can be done, because it's done in our facility, can be done in the same day. Takes up to 2 hours to complete, and then we have pretty much reports and recommendations straight after. So it's really streamlined process to like I said, not jumping from place to place, but actually having those tests and assessments done really quickly. So it's almost same amount as for someone will take to take you for the movement session, just to understand how you move. We can actually do all those 4 things at once. And then we're having team approach who actually looks at those analyses unbiased as well. So it's really important as well. It's not like we're not biased to any of those tools. For us, those tools are actually what helps us to problem solve. So Precision Health is all about problem solving. So it's like, okay, we have that triage of people and assessment tools as well to help us advise how we're going to go about the specific case when it comes to true personalization approach. And each case is different, of course. Sometimes we have really common things as well. Sometimes we have things when we're discovering certain dysfunctions emerging early on, and we refer. So that's another thing we finding right now as well, when we have some clients actually come into us with certain health and fitness goal, and suddenly like we see we had a client who actually just was exposed to, it seems like, having cancer symptoms as well. So it's like he wasn't aware of it, and we refer to doctors to investigate that further as well, because we saw that on the bloods, and actually was confirmed after that. So it's like that was really helpful. So we not try to be medical facility at the same time, but I think when symptoms become really obvious, that sometimes is a bit too late already. And having this kind of triage of assessments and recommendations actually helps you not just in fitness, but also keeps you catch things quite early as well, when you actually can make really easy changes and improvements as well to your health. So this is kind of the first phase of the Precision Health. So it's really rebalancing phase. For someone, it can take a couple of weeks. For someone can take way longer than that. So it's no competition really. But what's important is to really sit down with the client and to go through it together. And I think it's really rewarding process there as well, because it's not just the expert's advice, but actually we're looking at the data together and we make those decisions together as a team. So not as a, like we have to do this, but we're looking at those assessments, we're looking at the posture together. So we're having consultation with the client after all those assessments completed, and we'll look at the posture, we'll look at nutritional deficiencies, we'll start connecting those dots as well. And it's actually, I think it's really refreshing for the client to see that as well, because it's their body at the end of the day. And we're not judging in any way. It's like saying this is bad or good, but we're saying like those things are happening right now. And sometimes people, they're aware of it. They know they're doing certain things. Maybe they can make improvements, and that's just reassurance. Okay, that's actually not helping your body, and let's make those changes, because that's your body's basically telling us, and we're translating the messages for you in a normal language, really, to say, well, let's focus on those things. Let's get body into balance. Let's reconnect with this machinery you have as well and move forward. Or someone can be like, they'd be like really surprised. They'll be like, wow, I didn't expect that. I was thinking I was doing things right, and like it seems like we're having certain things to work on, and that's a great starting point for me. It's like it's actually having really, really good, strong starting point what drives you forward, right? If you don't know your starting point, how you know you're making progress, right? So I think this gives us really, really good starting point to move forward. And from there, like I said, when we have that rebalance, it's the first we're looking at, like, let's bring the body composition back to normal. I'm not saying like optimal, six pack, ripped and everything else, but more like what would be the normal standard? Like what health standard would be to, from research, if you're in this level of fitness, you're going to do well. And then from there, we can say, well, what was the goal in the first place? Want to get stronger, or you want to get ripped, you want to get really good body composition. Okay, that requires quite a lot of stress and adaptation. So we need to think about, are we ready to express body to stress? And good things like when you go in for the rebalancing phase, you're already getting better. You're looking better and feeling better as well. So actually your body rebounding quite nicely. And now we can actually express you to a bit more stress and different phases of training as well. So that's kind of going to that quality of movement, quality of nutrition, developing habits. And then the last phase actually going to a performance phase, which can be, we have clients who are actually doing like first base strength program, which is like doing, 5x5 kind of type of training, right? But it takes time. So, with the time to get there, like it's really exciting for the client to actually do that, because it has a confidence and ability actually to perform well. So yes, I think, what's different there is actually that initial phase and understanding the starting point really well, and then spending time to rebalance the body, and working with the client as a team as well, so they on board as well to move forward.
I think that's a really important concept that doesn't get enough attention, in that we often think about laying foundations, like movement wise or even nutritionally, get the big components, big rocks in the jar first. But we don't think about laying foundations from a stress tolerance point of view. Everyone thinks, more is better, get up early, get after it, just keep pushing. But actually you can exceed your ability to recover from the stress you're placing on your body. And I think that's probably one of the most common patterns you see, especially in a city like London, where everyone's working quite hard as well as playing quite hard and then training quite hard as well. So I love that rebalance phase where you get to grips with it and say, look, if you want to get ripped, I love the way you phrase it, that's going to take a lot of stress and adaptation. So you need to be able to tolerate that stress so that you can actually adapt to it later. And is that a common pattern you see with your clients, given it's London, like everyone's just really stressed?
Yeah, and like, we're not saying like, when it comes to rebalance and fail, we're not saying like, you have to stop working harder, stop pushing yourself. It's like we're in London, we're realistic about it. Like everyone, like myself as well, like, of course, I'm exposed to quite a lot of stress, and I have to be really like in tune with the body when it's enough, and I can actually, train harder, or like, I actually can focus on the movement pattern. It's the same with the clients as well, to really enable them to focus on their priorities. And it's like actually understanding their priorities as well. So again, assessment plays a great role to say, well, look, I know your work is priority, and it's not necessarily like a normal work environment some people will be exposed to because they want to achieve certain things. And we need to think about the goals differently, how we can actually optimize your body to withstand the stresses you have in your lifestyle. So sometimes it's actually reframing the goal, and it's important. Like I had a few conversations with the clients and just like working on reframing, how when people say like, I want to get body composition goals, like I want to really be in the best shape possible, but at the same time I have really stressful job and I don't have time to train and all that things. Like that sounds like work, right? That sounds like you have to add another thing to your routine, and then the priority is always going to be winning, right? You're always going to be going for that career goal, or if you have a kid as well, so you're going to be look after that more, and you're going to say, well, you're going to find excuse, right? But if you suddenly if you convert that to saying like, no, I'm doing that for this priority, right? So I'm doing this for the career goal I have. So I'm getting my body ready. So let's say nutrition I do, or like any supplementation strategies I'm doing or training strategies is going to be geared towards me performing better at my work, or like actually being better father, being better mother, being in a better position to actually serve better for the family. So now it actually drops the weight from the shoulders as well. We still can do those things, but the mindset is different. The why is different now as well, and it feels better. So it's important still working not just with the testing, but actually understanding how we can, what's important, what's not that important as well, and is that goal is actually articulated well.
So what I love about the reframing part you said there, like with that conversation, because quite often I always feel like I'm putting the reins on some of my clients, because I'm just like, look, just chill. But rather than me just telling them to chill, I'm trying to explain to them how then we will manipulate their environment, their training, their nutrition and stuff to kind of give them the goal that they essentially want, but they might have to go about it in an unconventional way, because it's not going to be just calories in, calories out, move more type thing, and you're going to achieve that. Because as you said, you've got so much other stress, and at the end of the day, stress coming from training, whether it's work, life stress, is all stress into your stress bucket, which at the end of the day, if you're not looking after yourself, is already going to be probably overflowing. But when I've personally found where the struggles kind of come at times is the reframing to someone that this base level that you spoke about at the start, the realigning themselves, coming in and kind of getting themselves back to a level of baseline that's probably below what they actually think they need to be doing, is so hard, because it's not the convincing, but it's kind of like convincing them that, and I hate saying it, but like trust the process, that we need to regress this far, because if we can kind of get us strong and consistent here, when we're adding in all these extra rocks down the line, you're going to be able to handle it. We can increase the intensity. We can do all these things because we've set our baseline better, rather than always coming in, say, at level 3, which is where a lot of us kind of have to go, because we have to appease the client. So because we have to appease the client, we have to find that sweet spot of giving them what they want, but also giving them what they need. And it's such a seesaw balance. And I think what's lovely, obviously, about your approach there is, I think the outlining it from the start, like this is what you're going to have to do. We all go through this level 1, we go to level 2, then we go to level 3. We're not going to say you're going to be level 1 now for the next 6 months. You might only be here for, say, 3 weeks, because we've been able to get there quicker. But I think once they start that level 1 phase, they'll start to feel the benefits. They'll be like, okay, this is feeling good now. I'm feeling good. I'm able to handle more in my day-to-day life, not even with the training stuff. Like, I probably feel more responsive to stuff. It's like, it really does encompass that as you say, like from the holistic side of things, because once we realize it does go beyond just the gym and what you're eating, you start to, it opens up your eyes to everything else that we need to start incorporating and understanding.
Yeah, and it's also having that phasic approach helps you to articulate the short-term, medium-term, long-term goals better. Because if you say to someone like focus on one thing, and it's like you suddenly you kind of discard many other things, right? And it's the same thing. Like if someone comes in with a body composition goal, which is in my books is performance type of goal, which requires stress and adaptation. At least now you're going to, let's say, someone's going past the normal ranges of the body. So let's say someone is a normal range and they wants to go further. It requires more stress, more adaptation as well, and more focus on fitness as a priority, nutrition as a priority. When you go into a phasic approach, let's say rebalancing things, like what's the goal really for the short term, long term, right? So in this phase, I'm expecting for them to feel better, to have less symptoms of being pain or being waking up groggy. So we setting those goals as a short term on this phase. It's like even we not getting stronger there, are we actually eliminating those symptoms we come in the first place? And then when it goes to a quality phase as well, is the movement quality improving? Is the actually becoming easier for you to adhere to nutritional strategies? Is that becoming automatic? So the quality, dexterity of the body is actually becoming becoming more in tune. And then if you're getting a body composition goal as well at the same time, that's like cherry on top, right? This is great. We're also achieving that as well. But at the same time, it's like when you go into performance phase, I'm expecting you to get stronger. I'm expecting you to to achieve that specific target as well, we was actually aiming for when it comes to fitness. So we're putting the strategies in place to have those milestones. So let's say someone's doing strength goals. Okay, we're starting with this weight right now. We know the movement quality is good, already improved on that, and I want to see the weight increasing as well. We'll celebrate that as well. So we have clients who actually on the strength program, it's like we just like texting each other as well. And it's like it's for him, it's like right now it's not necessarily other things. It's like we really zone in on getting stronger, and it's just like sending me videos as well, like of the movement exercises doing, like if the quality is good and actually the weight is lifting right now, it's actually okay, it's exact, the movement pattern is exactly the same, it's lifting more weight. What that tells me it's getting stronger, right? So it's just more like sometimes get rid of the noise and focus on specific things. Like we want to do so many things at once, and I think in the fitness industry as well, we try to kind of cater for that as well, and it becomes a little bit more like entertainment, right? The client, he has a problem, it comes with a problem, but we have to, as a fitness professionals, we have to articulate that problem better. It's like we dare to having that experience to articulate those problems in a better language, and again, and sometimes reframing, like because like when people say about body composition goal, like you're getting them just to the baseline what the normal ranges are, that's their goal of the body composition. And as a trainer, sometimes we think like this is six pack, right? This is someone wants to get ripped, and we actually start putting the stress on the body too early, and thinking this is what they actually want, without actually having this conversation, articulation as well of the goals and reframing of it.
Brilliant. I think something that I can imagine a lot of listeners questioning now is, in that rebalance phase, are there any what are people most surprised by when they come in with, say it's an aesthetic goal, they want to lose some body fat, and you in your analysis pick up that they're probably more stressed than they think, and the stress is going to be holding back their ability to get leaner? What would be, I know it's very individualized, but what would be the most common mistakes, or maybe surprising mistakes, that people are making outside of the gym?
Yeah, so it's the stress is probably, it's kind of the currency there as well. So how much you can actually tolerate, and if it's like when it's too much, when it's not enough as well. And it's like the assessment's actually helping to look in this a little bit more closer as well. So if we look at the analysis and then we see vitamin mineral deficiencies, and at the same time in metabolic analysis we see high carbohydrate use as well. So the energy use during the resting periods is quite off as well, what they expect it to be as well. So in those kind of scenarios, it just tells us, okay, well, we've probably been in this state for quite a long time as well. So we have to rethink the strategy better as well. And most of the time, it's like, especially like when it comes to females and also males right now as well. Like I think the whole kind of scenario of eating less as well. Like look out, like we always have this idea, and I think it comes down to the same thing. It's like probably I'm eating too little, right? Probably it's like that's probably the case of me, not getting in shape as well. So people kind of having this subconscious mentality as well, like they have to reduce, and then have those emotional kind of aspects when they start binging as well. So we can really clearly see that in analysis as well. And then the first thing is also just increasing the calorie requirements as well, and then also increasing the nutrient requirements for that deficiency, which makes like biggest shifts as well for the body. We're actually knowing exactly what kind of nutrients they're missing, and actually educating them on the nutritional strategies what actually helps them improve that without supplementation yet as well. So supplements is still important, but is a supplement to good diet, right? So first it comes to creating those habits and understanding the nutrient value as well. And another, I think, surprising also for the assessment is so some people not ability to actually process a lot of protein as well, right? So it's like we also think when it comes to training, I need to eat more protein. So sometimes it's not necessarily low calories, but like we have to increase the protein intake, and that's true for most of the people. But when you look at the analysis and the amino acid turnover and also stomach acid production issues as well, really common due to high stress in people, and their not ability to actually process protein well, and they already have this mentality like from the industry as well. They have to just eat more protein; it's going to be better, and actually they're causing more issues for themselves when comes down to their gut health as well, and dysbiosis symptoms as well. So creates more fermentation in the body. So sometimes that rebalancing phase can actually be like reducing the amount of protein you're eating as well, rebalancing the body, improving the stomach acid production as well, and then introducing the more proteins into the diet. So it's really different from individual perspective as well. So when it comes to those strategies, so we'll look at case to case basis, but that's a good example. I think when most of the people are like too little, and at the same time, you have to eat a little bit more as well when it comes to protein. And then that not necessarily improves their symptoms.
Are there any big behavioral things that you see that people stay up too late, drink too much alcohol? Like, what are the most common patterns you see for people taking on like unnecessary stress? Let's say, like, obviously people have jobs, they have families, and say they're like, is it overtraining very common? You see a lot of people actually doing too much in the gym, pushing themselves too hard too often. What would you say are the top reasons that people have an overflowing stress bucket?
So for guys, it's quite common, like especially younger population. I think is not understanding this when it comes to training, understanding that stress tolerance issue as well. Like so when it's actually full body stress, neurological stress as well, and then it's a negative adaptation instead of actually thinking about the quality of movement pattern, and then putting yourself through that challenging workout with the best possible outcome as well. So this is different, and that of course also drives the negative adaptation biochemistry. So it's like when we have that physical stress, it's no difference having emotional physical stress. Is still going to drive the negative adaptations as well if it's done poorly. So I think I see quite a lot of the training approach when people doing a lot of kind of entertainment training, I would say. So it can be high intensity classes, and it's not necessarily the need at that point for that person as well, which like we see amazing results for someone who just reducing the amount of workouts they're doing, reducing the amount of intensive training they're doing, can actually going into more aerobic type of conditioning, focusing on the breathing, focusing on the movement pattern quality, more frequency but not intensity, which actually drives the much more positive adaptation, even in the muscle mass response as well. So just like, again, rebalancing. So sometimes actually we see muscle mass increase when actually reducing a lot of training.
Yeah, amazing. You've mentioned negative adaptations a few times now. Could you explain to the listeners what the red flags are? Like, when would you know you're in a negative adaptation phase?
So if it comes to training, I think it is what we mentioned already in terms of, when you're losing track of your pattern as well and the quality of movement. There is a question as well: are we actually able to? Are we have the tools in place to actually go to that limit of your pattern? So let's say how you actually know how to move well first. So there's a really big component of pushing yourself in a training scenario. When it comes to, let's say, high intensity training, so sometimes people think like you have to, it's 20 seconds, have to push as hard as you can. But what would be the measure for you of 20 seconds failing, right? And when it comes to, let's say, just going on an assault bike, for example, look at the power output. So are you actually in every set able to improve the power output, or at least maintain that? What you see a lot is like people not going to be able to maintain 1 or 2 sets. It's like on the second set, they're already dropping on the power output. So that tells me like, we're not even ready for that type of training, but they will do like 5-6 sets of it, So that would be negative adaptation. And I think it's just no realization how we measure that. What would be the measure? And the measure can be also in heart rate, right? It's like, what's your heart rate recovery looks like? Are we able to recover the same amount of time, or that takes you like to actually get to your aerobic zone way longer? What that tells you, like, it's probably time to stop. And that's going to be just enough stress for you to adapt positively, recover, and get stronger for the next one. So it's going to be a great way. And sometimes that might not necessarily feel like a lot. You feel like, I used to actually for more, like I can do much more. And that's another like ego check in, right? It's like, well, actually, wow, I'm like, I feel like I had more harder workouts in the past, but when it comes to those metrics, I can't do more, right? And I think this is the right amount of stimulus for that person to, come back and adapt again. So having the right metrics when it comes to, training, so that's important, and also looking at the symptoms as well, like, how's your sleep? Are you actually waking up nighttime? It's like, if you've done the training, you've done, let's say, if you're on a low calorie diet as well, what the symptoms are telling you, you get stressed up really quickly as well, or you wake up groggy, or you're actually not able to fall asleep really well. Something is not working. So this is a big red flag as well. So your body is already telling you those signs are happening. And we kind of overlook that's a normal, that's how it should be. I don't think that's normal and how it should be. It's a negative adaptation already happening. So it's not just persevering, but more listening to your body and making small changes there to accommodate for that.
Do you know, I feel that when listening to a lot of this stuff, and obviously stress keeps coming up, and we talk about how we're all trying to find a way to like mitigate stress across the board where we can, and like have just the right amount of stress. But I think what's also important to understand is it's still quite new for us to understand what stress is doing to our body, because it's like when you look at how the average work-life balance has now become, and how much time is in the office, how much stress people put under, whether it's through the work, whether it's through training, whether it's through like your electronic stuff and like your poor quality sleep, like we're all starting to understand that there's something wrong. And I think obviously like what you guys are doing, where you are like saying that we can get that full approach of understanding, cool, let's see what your blood work is doing, let's see what this is doing, let's see how everything contributes to the amount of stress that you're taking on at the moment. So what is something that you think that if someone couldn't make it to your gym, that people could implement into their lives at the moment to help reduce their stress bucket, that based on all the things that you're seeing in the city of London, and at the end of the day, these city stresses are going to be worldwide. So what is some things that you think that people could implement, say today, that would really help them towards their goal, whether it is a body composition goal, whether it's a strength goal, whether it's like a holistic goal of some sort? Like what could people do?
Yeah, so I think we always think like, about training, nutrition in terms of actually adding more stress to the body than less, right? It's like, I need to train more, I need to, do resistance training, I need to eat less. All that sounds like adding additional stress to the body. It's another task to do. So we're not really in tune with the recovery strategies overall. So I think, for everyone is thinking about from the nervous system perspective as well. Stress is that fight or flight response, and then relaxation would be that parasympathetic drive for your nervous system to rest, digest, sleep better, right? And when it comes to those places like London, any kind of big cities as well, we actually driven on certain, we work a lot, we driven on certain goals as well, so achievements to do as well. And sometimes we push ourselves, so adding more stress. So it's actually really driving the recovery activities more. So rethinking the strategies instead of thinking about training as a resistance training. Training can be many things, right? And again, to the same analogy, there is creating bigger toolbox for yourself. What tool I can actually pick up today to drive the positive adaptation. So it can be yoga, it can be breathing exercises as well. So can be also thinking about your sleeping hygiene as well. So just really simple basic strategies which will help you to have better recovery, improve that parasympathetic drive of the nervous system. So we can definitely see in the measurements as well when it comes to posture, it comes to metabolic analysis and bloods, is a high chronic stress in most of the people. Being from nutrition, being from emotional stress, physical stress, whatever that is, and how that manifests in their symptoms is different, of course. But it all kind of stems from those things. We just have a lot on our shoulders, but we're not really having enough tools in our toolbox to pick up, to drive positive adaptation when it comes to recovery strategy. So yes, really rethinking your recovery strategy, a lot of people don't have. So sleeping hygiene, like I said before, and then in terms of nutrition, instead of thinking about reducing the calories, actually thinking about nutrient quality of food as well, not thinking about the calories that much, but thinking about what nutrient quality of that food you're actually eating is in there to help you to drive adaptation. Because guess what, if you have more stress, you probably need to actually eat more than less in this perspective as well. So that not necessarily it comes down to training, but also to other stresses as well, mental stress, right?
Yeah, I feel as well that if we're talking about training in particular, and I think you alluded to it at the start, and frequency really can be a real benefit in this type of scenario. Whereas a classic program which really hammers all the pushing muscles in the body, then hammers all the pulling muscles in the body, then hammers the lower body. But if you actually segmented all those exercises throughout the week, where you revisit the push and the pulling thing every day, you might not have that instant gratification of feeling that pump, but at the end of the week, you've hit your 20 sets or whatever you've given yourself, you've done that work, and then it's getting better. So you're then thinking more long term, because you're able to recover better each session, so you're not doing too much. And I think it's as we've kind of said, and I've just said there as well, about that instant gratification. We're in a period of our lives where there is a lot of it. That dopamine it seems to be a necessity, and we're always chasing it. And if our training doesn't feel that it's progressing us because it wasn't hard enough. I was with a client this morning, and we were doing, she's a bit injured, so we're going through some movement stuff like that, and I said this is a restorative session, and she's like, what? And I was like, it doesn't have to be breaking you down. This is one that's actually leaving you. And she was like, I feel like I could do more. I said, exactly, but you've got better than you was last session, and you're feeling better. You're leaving here. And she's like, I know normally I'd want to leave here and then I'll go and row a 10K just to kind of get some calories burnt. I'm like, but that's exactly what's got us in this situation in the first place, because you didn't listen to me, and you've kind of broken down now, and we're having to rebuild you in such a way where we're reframing that mindset of, okay, not every session is going to be a beat up session. So every so often it's good, it feels good, but sometimes we have to understand. That's why start of every single session with nearly every client, I'm always asking them, how are they, how's their day, because I need to see what they're not telling me. So I need to ask them, how's their work going, how's this going, because it gives me a frame of the person. If I can then adjust their program for the day, even if we can still do the same movements, but the intensity is going to be different, because they maybe are just not ready for it. And this is where I feel and I love with what I deal with, a lot of people looking to get stronger and bigger, and when it comes to strength training, I love basing things off RPE, because it's your feeling on the day is very important compared to what a percentage of your best ever performance. And that is what helps us kind of regulate some intensity, because sometimes we are going to push past our RPEs because that's where we are. But for me, that gives us the opportunity to try to not be always in breakdown. And as you said there, it's not always resistance. It's actually helping us get better.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I want to piggyback on that. Two things that I loved in that. The first thing is something we've talked about before, is the two concepts of minimum effective dose and maximum recoverable volume. And I think there's a bigger gap between the two than most people think. Like in terms of the amount of work you need to do to stimulate your body to get better, it's probably lower than people think. That you can actually go in and do quite little work in the gym and your body will actually come out of it better once you're recovered. And people probably think that maximum recoverable volume is higher than it actually is. So it's very easy to stray beyond the amount of stress on the body that you can actually recover from on a sustainable basis. And that notion of going to the gym and not crawling out is alien to a lot of people. They think it's only an effective workout if they've absolutely destroyed themselves, which is absolutely not true. And there's an analogy that I like to use to bring this point home for people, is that essentially when you're going through the stress adaptation process, everybody kind of understands you do a little bit of damage to your muscles and they grow back bigger and stronger. And the same is true of all healing and recovery in the body. Like if you were trying to toughen up your hands and develop calluses and you sort of sand away the skin, it will grow back thicker and stronger for next time. If you do that too aggressively, you'll go through all your calluses, you'll start bleeding, and actually it's going to take you much longer, and it'll probably scab, and it probably won't be as good of a callus as it would have been if you'd taken off 1 or 2 layers on a more consistent basis. And that's essentially what we're trying to do in training. We just want to take enough off so the body knows it needs to grow back tougher next time. But if we take too much off, it actually sets us back so far that just to get to baseline where that skin is now able to tolerate more stress takes even longer. And I think once you start thinking about it like that, you're like, oh, actually, shit, I'm not trying to write myself off every day. I just need to turn the switch on to stimulate adaptation, and then I can go again sooner and actually get long-term results faster, which is kind of mind-blowing to think you can go easier and get better results sooner.
Yeah, well, even like in the professional athletes, I think we're so overlooked as well. People always see the kind of pinnacle of the competition, right? And it's like this exciting thing as well. I mean, people competing and they're doing the feat. But when you look at the training as well, it's geared towards like especially like let's say weightlifting competitions is more like geared towards quality of movement pattern. Most importantly, and you can see like if you look at the training scenarios, of course they might lift way heavier weights, but for them that intensity is going to be quite reduced the most of the time. So most of the time is the quality more than intensity overall, and then building that phase as well to a point when actually going to compete. And I think that change in the general population is still quite recent, when we favor the intensity more than anything, is favoring that kind of, again, dopamine boost and endorphin rush as well, not really thinking about long-term applications to that. And I think even looking back in training books as well, like if you look at 100 years, it's more like a gymnastic and kind of calisthenic type of training. And the gyms is more kind of was geared towards improving movement quality, or like it's more like a problem solving kind of thing as well. It's like it's a lot of weird stuff, and at the same time it's like stuff would actually stick till now as well. And now we can see that shift from quality or movement exploration to something more like, it doesn't matter that is parameters, like it has to be intense, has to be hard. Was the parameter to get the results, like intensity, stress to the body. So I have to put the stress to the body no matter what to achieve the results, because that's kind of the currency. But we're completely forgetting this, like what's this for, right? It's like it's actually movement exploration at the end of the day. And then when you can afford yourself to actually push to a bit more limit there, you can do that as well. But that's like your 10% of your workouts pretty much.
Yeah, that reminds me of like we spoke about it on the podcast before, but like the bodybuilders, like you talk about going back in the day and like how training used to be, and like I've looked into like old time strength and how people used to, basically it was like a circus act, right? It was a performance. And then obviously when the world of bodybuilding kind of took hold of the fitness industry and guided everything, it's like right now everything needs to be about aesthetics. You have to like go to failure, do this, and then obviously, okay, cool, now we need to get that done quicker because we haven't got say 2 hours in the gym that say these like pro bodybuilders have got. Now we've got high intensity intensity work, so now we can get everything done in like 8 minutes of this massively intensive work. And like the assault bike gets invented, and like the devil that it is, and it's like you could do a 4-minute workout and be trashed, like, you know, for the whole day, it feels like. But it's funny because I then think about the bodybuilders, then going back to there, they have their high training, but then they also do their walking on the treadmill, which is their zone 2. So it's like they have their balance, and I'm not saying that's obviously what everyone needs to be doing, but they've had the high and the low, because the low is then when they're on the treadmill, just doing their walking, getting their steps in, getting their aerobic fitness built, rather than always working at high intensity. Because very rarely do you see many, like, say, pro bodybuilders doing sprints and high interval training, because they know that's a form of strength training in itself anyway, because the stress is so high. It's just they're not going to be able to recover it for it, and their main focus is to look good. And that's what a lot. And to be honest with you, as you've kind of even said, like with people that have come to you, like a lot of people's goals are aesthetic, like the way they look, which, as you declare, is a performance goal, because it is. We have to now ask our body to adapt and change, and like that in itself is going to be stressful. Like that change is going to feel uncomfortable. That's because at the end of the day, you are not happy with where you're at the moment, because you haven't been in a place of change. You've been in a very much happy to be where you are, that baseline, and that baseline isn't good enough for where you think you need to be.
Yeah, and it's like when you're talking about baseline as well, it's like this is another thing where people, I think, his first goal is actually establishing the healthy baseline, something you actually can come back to when you expose too much stress. You know, it's like your safe place, which is, you know, your body feels in balance, you know, and connected with yourself, you know, grounded as well, in a good place. Well, a lot of people, you know, their baseline is not healthy, not conducing as well. Like, you know, they've been in that kind of a stress state for many, many years as well. So actually, you know, bringing them back to something which is actually not necessarily, you know, having this amazing physique, but actually feeling healthy, feeling like your symptoms are actually reduced as well. You have less pain as well. You don't have too much stress going on from the physical stress as well. And that's a baseline you can actually lean back to. So let's say when you're training, when you go on the performance phase, when you have to go to you know, strength training or body composition type of goals, or really pushing yourself, stressing your body, is something to come back to. Like something, okay, like I know from this short duration of phase, I can come back to that baseline when established before. So we don't think from that perspective, and this is important when it comes to that rebalancing phase when we're doing precision health as well. So it's just like establishing better level of operation for that person as well. So like, okay, this is not calorie counting. This is like actually establishing those habits you can stick to for rest of your life and you feel happy about it. And then of course we can go to other modalities as well and challenge the body, but then that's the baseline, works for yourself, you know, works for you as well.
Awesome. Virgis, I know we're getting close on time, but there's one thing I wanted to ask you about before we go. Just, I think of your approach as being at the forefront of the fitness industry in terms of the holistic interconnectedness of all the different disciplines. And I'd like to think that's where the fitness industry is going in terms of looking at things from a much bigger picture rather than the siloed approach we were talking about earlier. Are there any other trends you see in the fitness industry in terms of where we're going, and what would be some good trends and what would be some bad trends from your perspective?
Yeah, so, I mean, like I said, I love fitness industry, and we, like in any industry, have, you know, certain flaws and have certain, you know, peaks as well. And I think here is like when it comes to any kind of activity, like applaud anyone to actually partaking, already thinking as well. It's like, you know, if you whatever that will be, if you're already, you know, doing some sort of activity or going to a gym as well, well done for you. It's like you're already better than 85% of the population who actually don't even think about, you know, doing anything for their body. So I think is great, but at the same time, you know, of course, when it comes to the future of industry, I think we kind of start seeing two trends there evolving, and I think that was like for quite a bit of time. So one is like geared towards entertainment, and another geared towards more personalization, but the people getting a little bit more. You know, we have much more technology and much more information available for us to actually make decisions, and you know, people become more aware of, you know, what what's important for them to understand about their body, and it's like what necessarily answering those questions as well. So we have to be like in the fitness industry, I think we have to be also quite objective now as well. We actually going for that trend. So I think the trend is actually becoming much more objective. Getting not necessarily medical, but having some sort of standard when it comes to assessment, assessment processes and coaching as well, and personalization, and also having this kind of other end of the spectrum, which is a lot of entertainment, like great music, great lighting, great atmosphere as well, which is inviting a lot of population, which is like not necessarily into fitness, but because they have all other things kind of connected to it as well, it attracts them to actually participate in fitness as well. So I think we're losing that kind of middle ground as well, which is like something like in between, and the fitness industry is kind of evolving between that's kind of a feel where it's going right now.
Yeah, I think that's a very accurate description in that there is, entertainment is the term I like for that sort of stuff, in that it's not necessarily that effective or what they need, but like you say, there's a massive positive in that it's getting people moving that otherwise wouldn't be, and maybe that's the start of the conversation for them to go 100%. Down a journey where they discover what they really need. And yeah, I think hopefully as technology advances, we do get a lot more objective data on what people actually need, and the more we can show it to them, then the more buy-in they're going to have, because there's a lot of people who have a preconceived notion of what they need when they start working with a PT, a nutritionist, or somebody else. And I've definitely had conversations in the past where someone thinks they've got a movement issue when actually it's just like a training volume issue or a stress issue or something else, and they don't want to hear, because they've come to see me expecting to have their mechanics looked at, and actually it's just you've jumped like 400% volume from 1 week to the next. Like anyone's mechanics would probably break down in that situation, and they're almost like annoyed that you can't wave a magic wand and then make the body able to tolerate 400% increase.
Yeah,
but
usually the issues people experience is not necessarily where the problem lies, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think that's an amazing place to wrap it up. But tell us more about where people can find out about Precision. What are your links and handle and stuff?
Yeah, so we're based in Whitechapel, East London. So just about 3 minutes walk from the station. It's 212 Cambridge Heath Road. So we're more than welcome to visit our facility as well to see what we do. Also, you can look at our website. So that's phgym.co.uk. And also we have Instagram. So Instagram is Precision Health Gym. So we can actually look for the new content. We're also like releasing, almost on a daily basis there as well. So, and my personal email as well, Virgis at phgym.co.uk as well. So you have any kind of questions as well, please reach out. Yes, and also the same thing. We do assessments, not just coaching as well. So we have strong assessment facility inside the gym. So it's also welcome for our trainers. We have our trainers working with us as well, who help their clients as well. And we, like I said, the Precision Health is not just a coaching facility, but also assessment facility, and also helping our practitioners to improve their problem solving ability as well. So like we all about collaboration as well, and we're creating quite great relationship, and really for me it's like a fresh air as well to actually collaborate with more other coaches as well, trainers and professionals as well in the industry, having those conversations about how we can do things better. It's not like what's the best in the industry, but actually how we're actually making impact and adding value. So yes, I think this is important as well to note. It's not about competition, I think, and that's another trend in the fitness industry as well. What I see is collaboration as well. So actually, serving more, bringing more value as well to
Real
people.
Positive.
Yeah,
mate. Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed today.
Yeah, thank you for inviting. Yes, it's great, great talking to you guys.
Thanks, Virgis.
Thank you, mate, for coming on. That was a really enjoyable episode. I feel as a trainer, and I guess yourself, Ash, that when you've been in the industry this long, you've kind of seen the phases. There's been a lot of ups and downs and all the new trends coming in. And I'm hoping this trend of the holistic approach of kind of looking at the bigger picture and not just the right now is becoming more of a thing. And I think like at the end of the day, we as we spoke about in the episode, that your stress bucket just being continually filled up from all angles of life, and it can be so easy to just think, right, I've got a body composition goal, I've just got to go and do more now, I've got to lose weight, so I've got to get training, I've got to eat less, I've got to do all this stuff. And just like, we need to have a little bit of a step back and kind of just a little bit of a thought, not just go. But it's cool, really enjoyed that. So we hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. Does that make sense? Yeah, I'm going to go with that. So I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you did enjoy it, please do share it with someone else that you would think would benefit from it. Don't forget to tag us on Instagram at lunge.lift. And don't forget to check out the description box below for all of our
links.
All of our links to everything we've mentioned in the show. So thank you as always, and we'll see you next week.
Cheers, guys.